If you may, please, as you can just tell, we are recording this session, and it will be made available on our website afterwards. I would ask that if everyone could keep themselves muted during the presentation, so we don't get any back chatter or feedback. We're all kind of experienced with Zoom and virtual meetings by now, so I think we've all experienced where we've heard things in the background that maybe we didn't need to hear. So that's certainly not the case that we want to do today. So again, thank you, and I want to thank the staff of the New Jersey State Police and the Governor's Office for working with us to put this together. Our speaker is Colonel Patrick J. Callahan, who in 2017 was sworn in as the 14th Colonel of the New Jersey State Police. The Colonel has more than 28 years of experience with the New Jersey State Police, and obviously has a long, impressive, and distinguished public sector career in public safety. And anyone can read his biography to see the many positions he's had and the importance of it. But I think we all know at the local level how critical the Colonel has been in times of emergency, in times of preparation, and as an ally and a resource to the municipal governments in New Jersey. So thank you, sir, for being there at all times. I see you have a master's from FDU, and your BA was from Villanova. So you kept it local, which is nice. And married now for 34 years to Linda with 4 children. I think we have to thank them for sharing you with us to our benefit. And I'd be remiss without pointing out that the Colonel was the winner and honoree of the at the League in 2021, receiving our Public Sector Career Recognition Award. Well earned and well received. So, Colonel, I will pass the baton to you. Thank you for joining us today. And Lori Buckaloo, the League's Deputy Executive Director, and I will keep an eye on the chat box. If anyone has any questions, you can drop them in the box. You can also use the raise your hand function, but we'll try to get to you at the end of the presentation. So, Colonel, the floor is yours, sir.
Thanks so much, Mike. And as always, thanks to the League for just since I've been involved with emergency management, the League has always been a phenomenal partner. This platform, I think, is a great way to supplement what happens at the conference. As the Major of Emergency Management years ago in the wake of Sandy, I remember briefing several mayors, but I think with all that goes on down there, that this platform certainly is a good way to connect. And I'll just start with, and I know so many people reached out to me in the wake of Rick Burdnick's suicide yesterday. He was a phenomenal partner in the OEM and law enforcement space. Heartbreaking for all of us. He helped plan with the Super Bowl. We were just with him recently with what Passaic County had experienced with the floods. So I know everybody on this call and beyond, I just ask that you hold Rick, his wife Monica, and their family in our prayers. We lost a good man yesterday. I really just wanted to take, in these slides I'll work through, the question and answers might be the most important part of this, but in the last few months and weeks, even, whether it was with migrants, whether it was with weather, flooding, what happened over the summer up in Warren County, just thought maybe it'd be an opportunity rather than try to call one county exec or one mayor at a time. Rob Field from the governor's office, and we had recommended maybe we just jump on this type of platform at lunch for a half hour or so and just kind of level set again as far as emergency management, our role. We are one of 2 states where that role is embedded in the state police. It's us and the state of Michigan. We think it works, not perfect by any stretch, but I think having troopers embedded in every county is a huge asset. I remember the federal coordinating officer in the wake of Sandy coming in, and he had been in emergency management for 35 plus years. And he said he had never seen relationships at the municipal and county levels like the ones that we've established in New Jersey. So that's a source of pride for us. I think having the ability to sit next to that trooper and that partner, pick up the phone, go into Emmett, make a resource request, explain things, And never was that more evident than when we all worked collectively through COVID. And now again, weather, what we're dealing across the board with just some severe weather on, just keeps coming at us. So we just thought that this would be a good idea. And just before I get to the slides, I'll just give a real brief overview on the migrant issue. So when Mayor Adams did his executive order, we immediately got on the phone with the governor's office. We thought an emergency management that would impact us in some way as bus companies tried to circumvent that. We didn't want to be correct, but we were. But as much as you've seen about on the news or what you've heard, it really has had a very minimal impact to the state of New Jersey. But our primary role is to let New York City know as timely and as accurate information when a bus gets dropped off at migrants get dropped off at Trenton or Secaucus or any one of our multiple train stations. So since that last week in December, that has been our role in OEM and with our fusion center to let New York City OEM know that 2 buses just arrived. There's 73 migrants, all 73 got on a train. And you have to keep in mind that these migrants are getting on those buses in Texas with a piece of paper with their A number and their asylum hearing information. So their final destination is New York City. And then when they get to a 15 or 20-minute train ride away from that, there is a chaperone waiting for them. They have the tickets pre-purchased. And I'll give you a sense. So 62 buses have arrived since Mayor Adams' executive order. That's in New Jersey. About 2,700 migrants, and about 250 of those have been picked up by family or friends. And whether they've stayed in New Jersey or not, we do not know that. We cannot ask them that information. So really a minimal impact. I know I've been on with several mayors with regards to impact on communities. That doesn't mean that you might not see increased registrations in school systems or social services, but for right now, an extremely minimal impact on New Jersey. And I just thought I would lead with that. We've had a migrant arrival working group in place for the last 18 months. So it's not like the light switch just went off and we started thinking about this, knowing the dynamics of the influx of migrants and where they were going to around the country. So I just thought I would lead with that, and certainly would take any questions as we get to the end, but we'll move forward. And if you want to start with the first slide, Chris, we'll go to that. So again, 1 of 2 states. The reason a lot of people, I'm not a member of the cabinet because I'm the colonel and superintendent. It's a cabinet level position because being the state director of emergency management. And as you well know, regardless of the natural disaster, pandemic, snowstorms, all those things, not that we're the leaders of those, that all hazards approach, but we kind of serve as the planning, logistics folks, the operational folks, in order to make sure that all of the departments across the state, state level, certainly county and municipal, that we're working in conjunction with one another. Lieutenant Colonel Chris DeMays, who's on here, he's actually down at headquarters working the PowerPoint for me. Phenomenal deputy state director who just really is always out in front of things before I even ask a question. Really does a phenomenal job at that. Sorry, I'm trying to silence my phone. And recently, Doug Lemanowitz is now the assistant deputy director. He was just promoted to major in the beginning of January. And again, another phenomenal asset. Those bureaus that you see: emergency response, preparedness, planning and support, and communications. Just that emergency management function, having been there as that major. If you recall, we had 23 massive snowstorms and no salt in New Jersey. That was a baptism by snow for me over there, but again, a source of pride for us. Next slide, Chris. So I know there's been a lot of questions about state of emergency, and sometimes the governor takes some heat over not declaring one. He bases that recommendation on a handful of cabinet members, me being one of them, whether that's DEP, Department of Transportation, Board of Public Utilities. That communication process is a robust one. But for those on the call, I know there's a blend of both mayors and OEM coordinators on. We talk about a line, all local, all disasters are local. They start and end there. So if a municipality has resources depleted, they then jump up to the county. Just as what happened recently in Passaic. I think we had one resource request that came in from Fairfield, or maybe it was, I think it was Fairfield, Essex County, where 80 and 46 come together, and DOT assisted with the traffic management there. But both municipalities and the counties were handling the resource request at their level, so it did not have to come up to the state level. And really, when people say, why not a state of emergency? The reason a state of emergency is called is really to implement emergency protective measures. I think back to Sandy, evacuations. Are we evacuating people off the Long Beach Island? What it means for what it means for mass feeding and having support from the Red Cross. Are we sending traffic northbound in the southbound lanes of the Parkway? Those are emergency protective measures, and really are the things that when we look to a state of emergency, or why are we declaring a state of emergency? It really has nothing to do with the federal government coming in and supporting us financially based upon the parameters set within the Stafford Act. And that's just been a point that we just have struggled to make clear, that state of emergency really has nothing to do with the reimbursement process. Really, as you can see, the county can declare one on behalf of a town, and the governor can certainly declare on behalf of a county, and all 21 through statewide. We just rescinded the one from a week or so ago. Was no longer needed to support. We really didn't have a ton of emergency protective measures in there. We wanted, we pre-staged some equipment with regards to swift water rescue and high water vehicles. That's another emergency protective measure that comes into play when a state of emergency is being considered. Next slide. So again, the Stafford Act is what drives that definition of major disaster. And you can see on the slide here, any natural catastrophe, hurricane, tornado, storm, high water, wind-driven water, tidal waves, tsunami, all of those things across the entire nation. Puerto Rico also comes to mind with what they were devastated with Maria and Irma and an earthquake. Basically, as we watch the amount of damage, and I think back to the storm in over the summer here in Warren County, a very localized, isolated storm, very rare to get a presidential declaration, but the threshold and the monetary impact, the devastation to state highways, to bridges, that critical infrastructure, as you well know, costs an incredible amount to repair. Threshold with our damage assessments, and that's when FEMA, they also in concert with us go to the president and say, in this particular instance, it should be a presidential declaration, and generally that allows us to recover 75% of what's been incurred to damages to those critical infrastructures. And that's a public assistance. So that's if a school, municipal building, what was paid for first responders, anything that impacted local, county, or state government from a fiscal standpoint is what public assistance is. And based upon that amount, like a Sandy, think about Sandy and the amount of that impact. There's then the second part of that is the Hazardous Mitigation Grant Program, or we call it HMGP. And that's things to do, elevating homes, buying out homes, retention ponds, things that we're going to use to mitigate future disasters. And those two go hand in hand, as well as multiple other mitigation, repetitive flood loss, flood mitigation assistance, kind of separate from individual assistance, although that's built into here. When the homeowners come to us, if you see those pictures on that screen there of those homeowners, a difficult threshold to meet as well when they're standing there with 2 feet of water in their basement and they're getting offered, SBA low interest loans. But the parameters and those thresholds sometimes are so tough to meet. I think it's 17.1 million now in order to hit the threshold. I don't think we hit that in Passaic over those multiple storms. As devastating as that was, we struggled to hit those thresholds in order to request a major disaster declaration from the president. Next slide, Chris. This kind of, I guess I jumped ahead of myself as far as disasters beginning and ending locally, and all the OEM coordinators on here. And I think some mayors are actually the OEM coordinator, if I'm not mistaken, that local municipality of the 565 of them here in Jersey, that's the first line. And again, town can't handle it, goes to county, county can't handle it, goes to state can't handle it, we go to the federal agencies after we've exhausted those resources. You think back to, I think back to COVID was a perfect example on mortuary affairs. We needed, I remember asking the feds for 20 refrigerated trailers to house the corpses of those decedents, asking for thousands of body bags to support funeral directors and hospitals. We didn't have that. No town had that. No county, New Jersey didn't have it. And that kind of shows that progression of working through what we have, what we have at hand and what we don't, and how do we work our way up to federal assistance. And you can see the next line with regard to the Municipal Emergency Management Coordinator gets appointed to a 3-year term. You could keep it on, you could have kept it on there, Chris. And again, a non-resident coordinator can reside, doesn't have to be in the town, but can be close by. You're testing my skill levels here. But that municipal coordinator also must appoint a deputy coordinator as well, which I'm sure you're all aware of that. You can go to the next one, Chris. And again, responsibilities, municipal, really similar to county and even this position, to plan, activate, coordinate, and conduct emergency management operations within the municipality. I think of when we get on before a snowstorm, all 21 county coordinators get on. They should be in lockstep with all of you at the municipal level. And I know sometimes there's an inclination for a mayor or county executive to pick up the phone and call the governor's office. I don't think that'll really ever end, but to follow the real effective process is to work through that. I certainly don't mind picking up the phone, and Rob knows this, and maybe some of you on the call, and kind of answering questions. But that's why this format is so good, because we can talk to a lot of stakeholders at the same time. Again, the coordinator can do all these things that you see: coordinate with the county, update your municipal emergency operations plans, can declare a local state of emergency, which we did see happen up at the local level in Little Falls, Patterson, Wayne, those come to mind. Chair that local emergency management council, that LEMC. Coordinate requests for resources. That used to be a bone of contention for several. It was just not an easy process. We have a new system called Emmett, which not only tracks but allows us to allocate resources. I think it was a great step forward, as is our HISN platform, this Homeland Security Information Network, that basically is a real-time platform that just stays open and allows direct connectivity to the State Emergency Operations Center. Obviously, situational reports are key in letting all officials be aware and residents of what's going on. And again, the educating of the public on resources that are available during emergencies. Warming centers comes to mind, given the frigid temperatures. I think all 21 counties had their code blue activations and had warming centers designated, which is a critical piece, especially when we're looking at if we're looking at a lot of power outages and it's 9 degrees out. So that's just some examples of the roles and duties of a municipal coordinator. Next slide. Again, county, similar to the municipality, every county required to have that county OEM coordinator. Commissioners appoint them to a 3-year term. I think in the last few years, we've tried to do some directives to really professionalize that role. I think maybe in years past, maybe 20, 30 years ago, it could have just been somebody who didn't understand Stafford Act, didn't understand public assistance and HMGP. But given the magnitude of local disasters and how they can quickly become out of control, I think of train derailments with hazard materials on them. You think how in an instant, that person who may have not really been steeped in emergency management gets thrust into the spotlight and has officials looking to him or her for guidance. And what are we doing here? So I think what the steps we've taken in the last few years is really to make this truly a profession and not a part-time position, and not one that's just viewed as it's just a title. It is really critical, and we've seen that unfold certainly over the last 15 years while I've been associated with emergency management. Next slide. Again, similar to what municipal, I'm not going to read all these through for you. Our relationships with the county OEM coordinators, working hand in hand with them. There's probably not a storm or event that I'm not on there with them all the time. I've been on probably 4 or 5 times in the last month with regards to weather. The National Weather Service will come on, really trying to have situational awareness at everybody's fingertips, all hearing the same message, all deciding, do we need to take any protective measures in order to make sure that both life and property are protected based upon the information that we have. You can go to the next slide, Chris. Again, I think we're getting to the end. I forget where we land on this, but again, the steps to declare a state of emergency, whether the incident meets that criteria that overwhelms both the municipal or county capabilities, advising and consulting with local officials and county emergency management officials. Are there emergency protective measures that need to be put in place across all those spectrums that I talked about? I think on the first slide, evacuations, sheltering, mass care, preparing and issuing that declaration, and then that declaration coming to our New Jersey OEM regional representation. So we have and paint the picture for all of us, all the way up to and including the governor, as well as the FEMA Region 2 administrator, as to which municipalities, counties, or is the entire state under a state of emergency. Next slide. You see on here that emergency management coordinator is really the only official with that power to issue that emergency declaration. I think that's an important item, only because it underscores the importance for elected officials to be in lockstep with emergency management coordinators. I remember in the wake of Sandy addressing mayors at the league and said, if you were getting to know your emergency management coordinator when Sandy was making that left turn into our shore, then you had missed the boat. That position is a critical one, as you all know. I mean, you're on here understanding the critical nature and what that all hazards approach needs to be about. Obviously here, and I just mentioned it, coordinator conferring with the mayor and county officials before that, so nobody's left in the dark. And that municipal quarter should also be in context with annex leads as well. And again, certainly must advise the county, which has happened. I don't remember that not happening since I've been in this position. Next slide. I think I touched upon this again. I go back to El Derecho in 2012 when those straight line winds came out of left field. We did not have a state of emergency because it came on us so quick. There would have been no emergency protective measure we could have done in minutes. But we worked immediately to go out and do those preliminary damage assessments with our recovery bureau, certainly in coordination with everybody who was impacted. And then before you knew it, the governor was asking for a presidential major disaster declaration as prescribed in the terms and conditions of the Stafford Act. And that is what happened back then. So again, just trying to clarify that you don't need a state of emergency in effect for us to go to the White House. Next slide. Does the state of emergency mean you aren't allowed to go anywhere? I can't remember a time when that was the case. We obviously asked that non-essential personnel stay off of our highways. We could, with the authority in emergency management, impose those vehicular or personal restrictions. Again, I don't recall that. But worst case scenario, if you needed everybody off the highways and out, with the exception of first responders and perhaps medical personnel, pretty rarely. And again, I don't recall that in my 28 plus years. And again, that last bullet, making every effort to facilitate safe passage for all those line crews. I got to go up and bring outages back up, healthcare workers, emergency services workers, all those that are engaged in the operational aspects of response and then ultimately recovery. Next slide. Again, the declaration does not address restrictions on selling products or services. Certainly at the municipal level, you could do that. I don't really recall that happening either, but just a question that sometimes pops up. And then with regards to employers' responsibility, that really falls upon the individual employees with regards to that policy. The governor's declaration doesn't have any reach into that mandate of those businesses or to address those workplace situations where an employee can't get to work. That really falls on the individual employees. Next one. State offices are not automatically closed during a state of emergency. That's another process where we get on and make those recommendations. Last Friday was an example. You had a storm that looked like the morning commute was going to be okay and then turn lousy. Wasn't a need for a state of emergency. I think we were actually still in one from the previous storm. But we decided, and it was our recommendation to the governor, that rather do a delayed opening or have people come in and turn them around and send them home in what may have been the worst part of the storm, that we decided to close state offices. But they do not necessarily close during a state of emergency. And again, that last blurb about all disasters being unique, I'm preaching to the choir on that. They do point out the need for that coordination, exercise, and training. All the exercises we did with H1N1 and bird flu, although helpful, I don't think prepared any of us really to the extent possible on the COVID-19 response. But we can't just sit back and wait for that disaster to strike. We have to do everything we can. Really, it's about relationships, which again, nothing new to anybody on this call, that when we get together on those blue sky days and I pick up the phone and call the county coordinator or speak to a mayor or whatever the case may be, that it's not the first time that we've been in the trenches before. We've been in training together. We understand the steps and that battle rhythm, I like to call it, when we get into that battle rhythm of the State Emergency Operations Center in coordination with all the county and municipal operations center, that's when you can really feel that firing on all cylinders and all pistons. And I've watched it time and time again. I think the rest of the country could take a page from our book, and not in an egotistical sort of way, just in an effective and efficient response, regardless of the task at hand. So I don't know, is that the last slide, Chris? Next slide. I think it was.
Last one, Colonel.
Yep, that was it. So almost landed right on that 30-minute mark, 12:32, but I'll take questions. I don't know if there's questions in the chat already. Let me see if I can pull some of them up.
Well, Colonel, I can throw you the question. We have
Okay.
one question. We have one question so far in the box from Glenn. And
Okay.
he's specific, but I think this has probably been experienced elsewhere. He indicates that from southern Camden County, Winslow, Berlin, Gloucester, they have experienced individual migrants, small groups, maybe 2 or 3 at a time, coming off the train in Atlantic City looking for shelter, with some looking for medical assistance. And his question is, are there state resources available to deal with that circumstance?
I don't think at this juncture, I mean, we work in conjunction with the Department of Human Services, which is the lead on the sheltering aspect, but I don't think that's unique to Camden County, what's happened there. I think we've seen that in various municipalities. I've heard that up in Morris County, some food banks have been stressed due to an influx. And this is that more informal. This isn't that plane arriving or those bus loads of migrants arriving. These are various pockets of migrants getting here by different means. I remember some being dropped at a rest area on the turnpike. But at this juncture, there is not, again, similar that if this grows to a point where that municipality cannot handle it, the county then becomes involved and then the state. But at this juncture, we've not seen any resource requests to assist with instances like you just explained with migrants getting off of a train seeking assistance. To my knowledge, I don't know if Chris or Brad are on, if you've heard of that, any kind of request coming in, Chris.
No, Colonel, we have not. Just as you stated, any local human services entity would take upon that mission, and then it would fall to the county if they're overwhelmed, and then up to us.
Thank you.
Well, the only other question in the box is kind of a rhetorical one, asking where else the presentation has been given and indicating that all mayors and council members should be given this. This presentation will be posted on our website, the Zoom recording. And I think we can also discuss, Colonel, with your staff about dealing with this or similar presentation at the league conference in November. But I don't know if it's been given anywhere else that you can point to.
This is the first one. This was the inaugural one. Again, supplementing what we've done in person over the years. But again, I know you have this recorded, but I'll get on every week, Mike. You know, I don't until we reach everybody and we all are operating off that same sheet of music. I think it's important, and that falls on us, I would say, the New Jersey Office of Emergency Management to make this opportunity available and to create this space. It doesn't have to be, a 4-hour block of instruction. I think what we covered here in 30 plus minutes is time well spent, because it helps hopefully everybody for the next one. And there will be, I'm an optimist, but I know that there will be more disasters to come, and we will be dealing with flooding. We will be dealing with blizzards. We will be dealing with hurricanes. It's just, it's Mother Nature, and that's why this and preparedness efforts like this one, I think, go a long way. So, you can count NJOEM in for any and all future endeavors.
Appreciate that. And, this past year was the first year we offered the 402 training at the league conference. We did it on a Tuesday morning. We set aside a 3-hour block. Our immediate past president, Ray Heck, who I believe is on the call, was instrumental in pulling that together. And that's something I think we'd like to do as well. But we're open to anything. If we want to do this again down the road a couple of times, this is always here for you as well. And I appreciate the availability of the state police to do so.
No, I like it. Glad to do it, Mike. Glad to do it.
Someone is asking if they get a copy of the slide deck.
Yeah, we can push that out through Lori or you. We can get that right over what was there. It's a pretty solid overview. I have to thank Lieutenant Colonel Chris DeMays and his shop for putting that together for me. I read it for the second time last night. I don't like reading to people, but I think it mapped out the questions that come up and processes and what that NJOEM perspective is as we deal with these disasters as they pop up.
Actually, speaking of the 402 training, sir, Bill Kane is asking, I guess in addition to the league conference, is there, where else can you get the 402 training? I think maybe we would have Bill's contact information. We might be able to send him some information about that as well.
Yeah, I think we could set up if there was enough interest, and I'll defer to Chris DeMays, but we could do that. Again, we could find a central location depending upon the number of attendees. I mean, we have our support room at the ROC, the State Emergency Operations Center. That seats 110. So, but I defer to Chris. But if we had enough interest, we could hold that one in person or virtually too. But I think that because it's a 3-hour block, I think that one might be more effective in person.
Yes, Colonel,
Right.
that's so on our training website on njomready.gov, there are a listing of training opportunities. 402 class is not on there currently, but we rely on our local and county partners to inform what their needs are. And then we initiate course actions from there in concert with them to help deliver the course, but also to host those courses as well. So again, to the Colonel's point, if you stay in contact with those emergency management coordinators, we'll definitely be able to set something up based on the ask.
I see no other questions in the chat box. I don't see any raised hands. That could mean that you've answered all the questions. So, and Bill indicated that he'll be willing to host the training too. So we'll put
Great.
you in touch with him. So with that, unless there are any other questions, I know we're pretty much on time. I think we were looking at the 12:45 range. So I guess we can wrap this up. Everyone will get this will be posted on the league website. We'll post the slide deck. We'll make sure everyone here gets a copy of it. Thank you again, Colonel Callahan, to Chris DeMays, Rob, and the governor's office for helping us put this together. Thank you for your time. It's much appreciated. And if this is the first one, I think we'll have a few more like this. Appreciate your partnership, sir. So everyone have a great day.
Thanks, Mike.
And,
God bless.
Same here, sir. And talk soon. Thank you.